Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to the Powerhouse Pavilion. Today I'm going to be doing my Overcoming Obstacles panel. My name is Monae Everett. I'm a celebrity and editorial, hairstylist, author, and educator. Thank you so much. Most importantly, right now I've created a diversity and inclusion initiative called Texture Style Awards. I have invited some of the brightest and the best in the industry to my panel today. We are going to discuss how we can break down different barriers in the industry. And if you're ready for change, give me a round of applause. Yes, yes, yes. So first up, I'm going to invite Atasha McFarland to the stage. Known as the go-to skin girl, an esthetician based in South Carolina. Come on up, Atasha. You're welcome. Awesome. Next up, we have Candace Harris, founder of Myavana, which is an AI tech company. Absolutely amazing. If you don't know it, you need to know all about it. And lastly, to bring a little testosterone to the panel, we're going to have Oliver Adams, affectionately known as Color King, to come up and join us. Okay guys, thank you for being here. I like to just jump in and get busy because we don't have a lot of time and we have so much to talk about. Is it okay with you guys if I just jump in and start rocking? Okay, all right. So we are all of the mindset that there are some things that need to change in our beloved beauty industry. And I like to draw attention to it. A lot of times we ignore things in the past or things that have happened to us and we think, oh, this just must be something that happened to me. And although things have been rough for some of us in the past, we're here to add some inspiration, make some changes. So the first thing I'm going to ask is, and this is open to everyone on the panel, how do you perceive the current state of diversity in the hair industry?
Ladies first.
I would say in reference to diversity in the hair industry, of course, more awareness needs to come to light. Oftentimes, just from my past history as an esthetician, coming in as a makeup artist and working fashion shows, oftentimes the concerns of the models are, hey, well, will I get an African American hairstylist or someone who is not African American, and how are they able to work with my texture? Will my hairstyle be just as fierce as someone who is not of the same ethnicity as me? So just making sure that even though we have different ethnicities and diversity, everybody still should have the skills and the techniques to still deliver whatever that look is for that particular runway show or magazine cover and things of that nature. So we have to make sure that we are diverse culturally to be able to achieve the desired results of what the client needs and what that actual provider is providing for the hair industry.
Absolutely, and before I have Candace to answer, I do want to draw attention to the fact that we are a diverse panel. So Atasha is an esthetician, she focuses on skincare and makeup. Candace is in the AI beauty technology space, which we never hear enough about, so I'm so excited she's here. I work in the celebrity and print space, and Oliver is a hair colorist and salon owner. So we're all going to have different perspectives, and I want to make sure everybody's clear that I'm inviting everyone to speak from their individual perspective. So Atasha, I want to add on to that. So are you saying that you've witnessed some issues with hair diversity and also with makeup, with models having their makeup done?
Correct. There's been times in terms of working like fashion shows, let's say I'm an African American service provider and maybe a Caucasian person that's offering makeup and hair services. Sometimes as you have a line of models, they will purposely wait for whoever they can relate to in terms of their ethnicity and background. So sometimes, you know, there's that mindset of, hey, well, she might not be African American or she's Caucasian, so she cannot, give me the desired look, or I won't be as beautiful, or the look won't come across the same way if she did somebody that's her same ethnicity. So just being diverse and actually, showcasing that. And even with brands too, sometimes when you have brands, you might still see just that Caucasian model as opposed to not showing all different skin tones and ethnicities to capture the different beauty styles.
Okay, next up, Candace, what do you think about the state of diversity in the hair industry?
Well, my entry into the hair industry was really different coming through the technology field. And so when we started, actually, the concept of bringing a technology product to market, there's a process called customer discovery. And we did that at the Brown & Brothers Hair Show about 11 years ago. But we were the only technology company there. As I progressed, what I saw was from a really, really unique perspective, from the perspective of ownership. And so my observations were, since I was in the process of building a company and meeting with different executives in the hair industry, what I realized was a lot of these executives looked nothing like the consumer demographic. And so when we were at the Brown & Brothers Hair Show, we were connecting. It was a predominantly Black audience, Black hairstylists. When we go to other shows, it seemed like there was a lot of separation, right? A lot of the, there were women who do Caucasian hair were over in these shows. And so that was an interesting observation. And then as I was going into these business meetings, they were predominantly white men actually making the business decisions. And so one thing I learned through going through the Sephora Accelerate program, we were in the first class of beauty entrepreneurs working to innovate the industry with Sephora. And what they found was out of all the brands that they carry, about 90% of them were all men. And so I thought that was very interesting from a diversity standpoint, because from the position of ownership, there were less people who looked like us. Meanwhile, we're spending the most money in this market. And so that was very intriguing to me to really understand how to disrupt that so we can get a bigger piece of the pie from an ownership standpoint. So that's always kind of what I'm looking at, how to disrupt through technology from the not only the innovation side, but the business side too.
Interesting. Oliver?
When we talk about the state of where diversity is, I think we're fortunate to be in an era where it's so important now, and we have actually exposure to it. I've worked with the company for 20 years, and it's just recently in the last 2 years that they've actually brought me on to help develop curriculum so that non-texture stylists can learn about texture. So now you have these big manufacturers, they're seeing how important it is also. So the good thing about it is now more than ever, it's out there. We have curriculums, we have technology and programs like Myavana that, it takes a lot of the guesswork out of it and puts you in that state where you can feel comfortable working with any type of texture. Because that's how we look at hair. It's not about race, but we look at it more as the texture and as a fabric. So as an expert or a stylist, you want to be as knowledgeable as you can. Information is power, right? So the more you know, the more you can grow and the more you can service anybody. And we know in 2023, as we go to 2024 and beyond, more than ever, we see so many types of textures. I think we identify over 1,000 different types of textures. So, the more that we can understand how to handle all of those textures, you're just going to continue to grow, not only as a professional, but it's just going to, help you expand in your brand and, all the different things. So I think it's super important, no matter what you've been doing, that you diversify yourself and learn, even if it's not going to be your specialty. Understand when that person comes in your chair to even be able to identify and explain to them about their texture, no matter what their race is. So I think it's super, super important.
Great point, Oliver. I completely agree with you. I feel like any hairstylist, any client that sits in your chair should be able to leave looking better than when they sat down. And it's really a sad state of affairs where it's common knowledge that if you walk into a salon and they don't look like you, they're not able to accommodate you. And that's something I feel we just really needs a change.
But I also think it's important that we have to educate ourselves, right? Because
Yes.
a lot of times, you know, say a young lady sits in my chair and she doesn't look like me. She might be looking at me with the side eye like, I know he don't know it. But as I begin to talk to her and understand and explain to her about her own texture and type and the condition of her hair, regardless of her race, it automatically begins to like have that comfort level, like, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. Same with this young lady. If a black young lady comes into her chair, she might be looking at her like, you don't know nothing about this type, right? But then if she starts to analyze, break down, oh, your hair is this, and you need moisture in the products, then she like, okay, all right. So it goes deeper than just the actual hands on what you're doing. It's just confidence and just understanding. It's like, okay, this is an expert. And we all want to be expert at what we do, right? Because that's who gets the money, right? You get, you know, as you know more, you get paid more, right? So it all comes back to, as professionals, like, let's know as much as we can so that whoever sits in our chair, we're able to, you know, service them and make them feel comfortable.
Well, feeling comfortable is great, but I always like to get to the shmoney, and I talk about that in all of my classes. We want to get to all the money we can get.
Absolutely.
We did not come into this career to not be able to support ourselves. And speaking of which, the beauty industry brings in approximately $750 billion every year, and so many beauty professionals are underpaid. And Candace, I heard you mention that when you met a lot of the owners of the different brands, you noticed that they don't look like America's top consumer of beauty, which are black women. They are white men. So I want to know, in your experience, have you observed any barriers or challenges faced by people who want to enter the beauty space as a brand or an educator?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. The number one challenge is the lack of access to capital. Because we know it takes money to start your business, right? It takes money to grow your business. It takes money to reach the market. And black women entrepreneurs are the least funded in our society, followed by women shortly after. I think black women receive less than 1% of venture capital. Women were less than 3%. So where are we getting the resources to start and grow our businesses is a really big question. But what I've seen in recent years, there have been so many initiatives providing grant dollars, new investors entering the space. I will say 10 years ago, there were no investors that looked like me. Today, there are hundreds of them. So I'm really happy that that has changed, but we still need to bridge the gap between the entrepreneurs actually finding the investors or the organizations that are going to provide the funding, right? So that's where I see the opportunity, because a lot of it is like you don't know what you don't know, right? And in our community, it's oftentimes just a lack of knowledge. You know, it's really just a lack of knowledge. It's not that you don't know how to be successful or you're not going to be successful. Sometimes we are not privy to the information that other cultures do have, to be completely honest. And so a lot of it is knowledge gaps, resource gaps. But what I have found, what was helpful to us in starting Myavana in the beginning, was a lot of the founders that did look like me, they were very helpful. So our first meeting was actually with Carol's daughter, and Lisa Price. And she actually sat on the phone with us and like gave us so much wisdom about the beauty industry. And so I would say, think about your experience and how you're mentoring others and how you're making connections for others, because those actually lead to put us in the position for us to have what we need to grow successful businesses.
Wonderful, I completely agree. Oliver, Atasha, would you like to add anything?
I think you hit it right on the head with what you said. Just getting in the rooms, capital, making sure that you're connected to the right people, and also us actually asking open-ended questions and not just settling for, oh no, this isn't available, or okay, if it's not available, when's the next open enrollment period? So sometimes we have to be a little bit more tenacious and get some things done on our end.
So am I understanding you ladies to say we don't lack creativity, we lack funding? We lack resources, we lack funding, we lack opportunities, but we don't lack creativity. Do you want to add anything, Oliver?
I totally agree with the ladies. And you know, when I started my businesses 20 years ago, I had no funding, right? And so fast forward, I'm like, wow, if I could have got funding in the beginning, how much further I could have went faster, right? Because you have the resources. So I think that's an excellent point. You know, a lot of people want to jump into business but don't understand what it takes and the cycle of business and the investment it takes and the time it takes for you to actually get from red to green, right? So if you don't understand these things and don't have that patience, it can wear you down. A lot of times, most businesses fail within the first, 2 years, because they don't understand, you know, your first 2 years, I'm not really supposed to make a profit, you know what I'm saying? Just to have your, you know, your capital and your funding and also have your credit together and like have all of that stuff because it's super important.
Okay, so since Oliver opened this door, I'm going to just follow right in. So for those of you who don't know, Oliver has owned many salons, and there are a lot of people in here who have owned salons or want to own salons. So how did you fund your initial salon? Did you go in your pocket? Did you go to your family? Did you go to a bank?
Pocket.
Oh, so you spent business
in the beginning.
money?
That was in the beginning, and you know, just because I was so confident in, you know, what I was bringing to the table or my own brand, I was willing to invest. But looking back, I wish I could have got funding, or I wish I knew how to, or so a lot of people just don't know. I would definitely say that's very important. You know, you can have the best idea, but without the proper funding, it might not make it. So, you know, whatever you can do to align yourself with investors and get your own credit together, like, I think it's a huge foundation for any business.
So one of the top reasons that minority-owned businesses fail is that they are funding their own dreams. There's nowhere for them to go get funding, and many times they don't understand where to go in order to get mentorship. So since he went there, I figured I'd just, you know, throw a little question there. Okay, so this panel is for everyone. This question is for everyone. What efforts have you personally made or witnessed to promote diversity within the beauty industry?
So it goes back to, again, like for example, we're here at the trade show, and I know my personal spa mentor, she always talks about us like getting in the room and networking, of course, with other spa professionals and ethnicities. And just like we talked about earlier, sometimes we don't have access to the capital because we just don't know, we don't take that assertiveness. So me personally, I make sure that I educate people that I come in contact with. For me being an instructor, oftentimes in the schools, I'm saying, hey, don't wait until you get out of school to start doing your LLC, your business license. Let me give you this information now, and it's not just for this particular demographic, it's for everybody. But you have to make sure that you actually implement the information. So, you know, we all have access to the same information. It's just all about how we go about acquiring the information and implementing it. So if you have the capability or the capacity to be in front of your mentees or somebody else that you're bringing up, just making sure that you do the research. As you get information, we're not holding on to it. You're passing the information along, and then also exposing people to different opportunities. So oftentimes, I know for Black culture, we always seem to go to the same things and kind of, like you said, kind of stay cliquish and go to the same events or do the same things. But sometimes, I know for me personally, being in the spa industry, I have networked and secured like brand partnerships, ambassador deals with other brands that's not just Black owned, but that offers other diversity. And that's sometimes what we shy away from, and we don't know how to approach because we don't have the verbiage and we don't have the knowledge to acquire or to kind of seal the deal. So just making sure that you're diverse and you actually have knowledge and you be assertive. So just making sure that my clients and students that I have, I expose them to the information and push them to go out and get the information from themselves as well. I just take my word for it.
You mentioned two strong points before we have other answers. You mentioned diversity, education, and higher learning. How diverse would you say is the pool of educators that you are around in the skincare and esthetician industry? Do you feel that the educators represent the population?
I know from my experience from being a teacher going through a set of school and then coming back to the same school that I attended and being an instructor, the question is always, well, this is what the book says, but we want to learn more, or they don't teach enough about, higher Fitzpatrick's. These treatments aren't specifically for everyone, so how do we customize to be more appealing to us? So you as the educator, you have to make sure that if you have the capacity or, the clout or whatever the case may be, bring that to the attention of the directors and see how you can change the scope and bring in more people for that demographic. So for African American instructors or Caucasian instructors, and then also to each ethnicity, we need to kind of come together collectively and be implementing new terminology or new education as it relates to the books that we're currently using, like Milady. On the Milady team, are there both diverse ethnicities that can contribute to the content that's going in and say, hey, we're lacking more on the hyperpigmentation, or we're lacking more on these Fitzpatricks, or can we include more higher Fitzpatrick pictures to depict or reflect what it is that we're talking about?
Awesome. And Candace and Oliver, I want to give you both a chance to answer the question. What efforts have you personally made or witnessed to promote diversity and inclusivity?
So the way I promoted diversity is really from the perspective of STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So my background is actually in computer science, and I actually worked with a cosmetologist to build Myavana to incorporate the expertise into building a personalized product recommendation system. And so through Myavana, we're creating new career paths in the hair industry for STEM professionals. So that means our chemists, our chemical engineers, our software developers. There's so many different majors that come from STEM backgrounds that now have a place to innovate in the hair industry. It's actually been very fascinating because, our brains think differently, right? I just talked to someone yesterday about how, hairstylists are right brain, right? Because you're artists, right? You're creatives. Whereas engineers, we're left brain. We're logics. We're into the methodology of things. But when you put both sides of the brain together, you can make some magic, right? And so that is what I've been really excited about in terms of, especially for women in STEM, right? Let me tell you, sometimes it can feel so isolating. I see some of my ladies in the back. It can feel so isolating, like sitting in a class and you're the only woman in class, you're the only black person in class, or sitting in a lab and, it's just, it kind of feels cold and just not as, you don't feel really passionate there. Like, you can do it, scientifically, academically, but is it really connecting with your heart and what you want to do in life? And we found that we're creating a place at Myavana for the techies, for the scientists, and that's really going to help overall improve the quality of the hair industry, especially as you think about the importance of research and development. So we're the ones in the lab. You can find us in the lab in Myavana cooking up some really amazing things. But yeah, that's how we're bringing diversity to the hair industry, bringing some new perspectives, new approaches on how we deliver personalized hair care, but personalized beauty as well.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I have nothing to say after that. Come on. But no, I think like she said, it's all about, I feel like we're all taking steps to create an environment of inclusion, right? Because like she said, it can be intimidating to step in that arena and you don't know, even what questions to ask or, what you need to know, what you don't know. So for me personally, it's just about making those relationships and those collaborations with other stylists and salon owners that don't necessarily look like myself, and we're able to teach each other, right? It's not all about what I can teach you. We're taking I'm an energy person, right? So it's and I've taught so many classes and they're we just appreciate you taking the time to make us feel welcome. Not, sometimes you can be with teachers and you ask a question and they feel like they're kind of talking down to you, and so that's the worst thing that you can do. So for us being able to just collaborate and, you know, bring you into this space, maybe you don't know about this texture of hair, let me show you how we do it. And then same, and when I come into your arena, I might not know how to do the balayage like you do it. And so, you know, you teach me that, and we just kind of piggyback. So I think collaboration is super huge. No longer are we all in our little sections where I just do this, you do that. No, we're like opening these boxes and like, come on over here, and you know, we're gonna come over there. And to me, that's how we all just advance it. So making sure that people feel comfortable in a space that they don't necessarily know about, I think is huge.
Okay, so what do you think brands can do to increase representation in the beauty industry? And we have a few more questions. We want to make sure we get to everybody. I want to hear from you guys at least 2 things that brands can do to increase diversity, whether it's their marketing, their outreach, their classes, their commercials, anything. We want to give them some key takeaways.
Well, I'll say this real quick. I think, again, things like this, having these discussions is a great step. But it also comes from the stylists ourselves, wanting to have the information, being vocal, like, hey, I want to learn more about curly hair. Yeah, if we don't go to IBS and say, hey, we want more texture education, we want more, you know, classes on how to color, how to lighten textured hair without messing up the curl, this, that, like, sometimes IBS doesn't know. So I think it's twofold. I think it's one on us as the trailblazers, but I think also as the stylists and students and salon professionals, they need to be vocal as to what you want to see more of too. And I think that'll help us get there faster.
Okay, so tell me some things that we would like, that we think brands can do to increase representation in the industry.
I will definitely emphasize education, because, you know, what you don't learn, you don't have exposure to, you don't know, right? And so there's so many opportunities to get more
It went off.
education. Oh, are we doing something?
I don't think we're doing anything.
Okay. Maybe the mics are tired. I think this is the last panel of the show. the mic's been working real hard all weekend. But expand your education, right? Learn something new. And even if it's the diversity of hair, it can be anything. Diversify just your thought perspective and your opportunity of what's in the beauty industry, and also market research. More market research needs to be done, especially not only in textured hair, but just different cultures of beauty, I feel. Because the more I get exposed to it, I'm like, oh my gosh, because now one thing I'm researching is new product formulations from ingredients around the world, right? I think there's so much unexplored territory in terms of how we can bring in new raw ingredients that can create really great products that we may not be aware of, and that those products, you know, can solve specific things. So definitely how you're thinking about ongoing education and market research.
Okay, so I'm hearing education, market research. Atasha, what can these beauty brands do to increase diversity?
So definitely everything that you said, I do want to piggyback off of education because that's definitely key. Education in terms of the theory and the practical, right? So we're going to educate and talk to the brands and say, hey, we know what we're supposed to be saying and what the product's supposed to be doing, but let's have an actual like show and tell day, right? Because you might say, hey, this product works for this particular client, you're supposed to wet the hair, or you're supposed to apply it this way with this particular brush, but that's from you doing it. So sometimes you have to be in the classroom and have like a show and tell day and say, hey, this is how it should be applied about this amount, but if this hair is thicker, then you need much more. So sometimes you have to, you know, because everybody learns differently. So if you do have people using your products, you might have to have them come in or go on site and say, hey, this is how the product should be used, how often, etc. So outside of education, which is always key, I also would say just going out into the different places that your clients are. So having the show and tell days, in-person days, connection and collaboration, and people seeing the diversity. So you might pair up an African-American stylist or provider with a Caucasian provider and say, hey, you know, when it deals with this particular type of texture of hair or skincare or makeup, this is how it should be applied. You may not need to use this much product. So I think it's more so the hands-on and the visual, because we can read the material, but how we implement it will be different because we all come from different backgrounds. So more hands-on, brand collaborations, working with the brand and the people that are actually using the product. So I think that's key.
I long for the day where we don't look at a brand and say, this is a white brand, this is a black brand, oh, that's an Asian brand. And I think if they increase representation by having different models on the packaging, by having different images on their websites, by when they do TV shows showing different models, I think that will go a long way. I worked with Milady on an entire series on the different careers we can have in the beauty industry and on styling for editorials. And the one thing that I did that they said had not been done before was I simply brought out models that did not look like me. There was no major announcement of, there's a black hairstylist working on a Latin model. When our materials start reflecting that hairstylists need to be able to style all hair textures, you have a Latin stylist styling an Asian girl, an Asian man styling a black woman, you have men styling women, and so on and so forth. We will make it clear that these conversations are not welcome and that we're a professional industry that can service everyone. I find it outright embarrassing that people believe that they can't go different places to be serviced, and the reason why they believe it is because the marketing and advertisement tells them that they're not safe there, and then when they go to different salons or to brand launches and things of that nature, they're shown that they're not welcome, then that has to change. But you know, I'm not leaving anybody off the hot seat. Let's talk about these beauty shows that have been brought up a few times. I'm going to step out here and say I think IBS is leading the charge in diversity. I love the Powerhouse Pavilion. We were a part of the committee to make sure that the work of African Americans in beauty has been celebrated. But I want to know from each panelist, and I need some actionable steps, guys. What can these shows do to be more welcoming of diverse audiences?
Yeah, I'll start. I would definitely say intentional marketing, because this is my first time at IBS Vegas, and I think that when you go to different regions of the country, how are you doing outreach like to those local communities, especially if you know that there isn't a large presence of Black entrepreneurs here? But let's go find them, right? Let's go invite them. I think that's really important because, again, from the outside looking in, especially when I came into the industry, certain visuals told me whether or not that show was for me or not. And I think that we do have to change that because, again, we want to eliminate all environments that would demonstrate or make you feel like you're not welcome, right? So that's the biggest thing for me, biggest learning from my perspective, and even going to multiple shows is that how do we do more intentional outreach to bring more of the entrepreneurs that you wouldn't typically see here?
Yeah, I think it's crazy that I can go to different parts of the country and I'll say a huge Atlanta show that has been known for decades and they've never heard of it. But let's be clear, if I go to Atlanta and I say other huge top beauty shows, they've never heard of it. Why would that be the case in a place like Atlanta, which is known for its beauty industry? Okay. Natasha, what would you like to add?
I definitely like what you said, and in conclusion with that, I would say definitely because we are so visual, sometimes tying in the marketing, maybe going out and doing lives, going on site like you said, doing lives, and I love a good show and tell just because people actually really need to see it. So I would say doing more community type stuff like you mentioned, going out into these different areas, connecting with people. You have stuff going on visually, YouTube, everybody's looking on YouTube. Make sure that we're maximizing Google because people are looking on Google. So maximizing all platforms that people are watching. TikTok, that's how we can bring in more education too. So definitely social media and platforms like that, tying back in the education and then the show and tell.
Thank you.
All of that's great. I really don't have much to add to that, except for, again, I put it always back on the stylist that, we have to, a lot of times stylists don't come to general market shows or shows that aren't necessarily a black show because they don't feel welcome or they don't know that they're welcome. So I think it's a big thing for us. I'm always out in the industry just encouraging stylists, hey, you always go to said show in Atlanta, why don't you try going to IBS New York? You know, it's all about getting people out of their comfort zone. And so I think the more that these shows like IBS have pavilions like this, it becomes where people feel more welcome, you know. And so traditionally I've been doing hair shows since 2000, so that's 23 years, and it's definitely changed a lot. And so, you know, probably 5-10 years ago, maybe black stylists didn't feel as welcome at an IBS or a Premiere or whatever it is. And so I think it's just a constant journey, and I think it's on us also being in the forefront and being the ones with the mic to encourage. You know, hey, you never been to IBS, you should definitely go in New York in March.
Now,
you know?
hold on. So you're telling me if I look at the sign and I only see blonde hair, blue-eyed models, or maybe they get spicy and throw in a little bit of red hair, that I as a beauty professional should actually go to that show?
Absolutely.
What?
I think you should, because again, it's all about knowing everything about this industry and everything we can as a stylist. I don't want to just know one specific genre. I want to know how, even if I don't do it, I don't do microlinks. I've taken a microlink class just to figure out, do I want to do it? Should I do it? You know, how would you know if you don't go look, right?
Yes.
So, you know, I would also go to the people that run these shows and work on, hey, you don't like just this imagery? Well, what imagery? What should we put up there? Let me show you some of my work.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're not doing anything, I'm one of those people, I don't like to sit in the back and just complain about everything. If you're not part of the solution,
Absolutely.
you're part of the problem. So instead of saying, oh, they don't never have black people, well, submit some work. Go find out who runs the marketing department and say, hey, why don't we have these type of images? Or, you know, maybe they don't know. Like I said that earlier, right? Maybe IBS doesn't even know how to reach that market. So it's on us as black stylists or, you know, pioneers or whoever's in, let's go let them know, right?
I would say it's on us as anyone who sees a problem to at least attempt to create a space. No one is going to come to rescue you. That is for every single aspect of life. If you want to do something different, do it. I created Texture Style Awards not just to celebrate all textures of hair, but also to create opportunities for artists. There are so many talented artists who never get the opportunity to meet with brands, to present on stage shows. They're not featured in the media, and these are all career-changing paths. But then stylists can be really apprehensive of trying new options. Trying new things can be very scary, but if we want to see change, it's going to take discomfort on every single one of us. You know what's really comfortable and easy to do? Sit and complain about something not going your way. And baby, I know you got 10 people in your phone that you can call and complain and say, you know what they did? You know what they didn't do? They didn't even look at my model. She looked good. It could have been a promotion for the show. They're not even checking for me. And then I'm your friend that's gonna say, ooh, boo, I hear you. I bet you worked really hard on that. What happened when you set up the meeting with the marketing director to pitch your idea? Oh, you don't know who the marketing director is. What happened when you asked for their information? Oh, you didn't ask for their information. What happened when you contacted the main office and said, I have an idea? Oh, you didn't do that either. Everybody in here looked uncomfortable when I went down that list. If you have a dream, it should make you uncomfortable. It should challenge you to do something more and something better. Sometimes there are people just sitting around waiting to hear what you have to say. And I also want to point out the discomfort that you have being a hairstylist or a beauty professional, and someone comes up to you and they ask you for something new, the newest trend. Let's say something within your wheelhouse. Let's say your wheelhouse is hair extensions, and the new trend is now microlinks, as Oliver said, and you don't know how to do that. How does that sit in the ball of your stomach? I'm hoping it makes you really, really uncomfortable enough to push yourself for change. So if we push ourselves for change and learning new things, that's not just in the skill, that's going to be completely ongoing. but I'm gonna bring it back to the panel. I wanna make sure to include these lovely ladies in the role in here. Okay, Atasha, how do you think a lack of diversity in the beauty industry affects clients from underrepresented communities?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say, of course, it's missing out on opportunity and an opportunity to build and expand the client's knowledge, the client's options for what's available to them in terms of whether it's skincare, makeup, or hair. And just to kind of piggyback off of what you were saying in terms of diversity and, hey, if you don't know who the person is, then you have to contact somebody. So, for example, like I'm here on a panel with all hairstylists. So that's being diverse. I think a couple of my colleagues was like, you're gonna be on a hair panel? And I was like, yeah. And they was like, but you don't do hair. And I was like, I don't, but it's still dealing with beauty. Cosmetologists can do facials and things of that nature. So it's coming back to diversity. If you just say, hey, well, I'm not an actual hairstylist, then you're still missing out on opportunity, but we're all dealing with beauty. So oftentimes we're going to have to work together collaboratively. If you're working on a set or something like that, you have to work with hairstylists, makeup artists, esthetician, or whatever the case may be. So, having that knowledge to know, like, hey, even though I'm just an esthetician or a makeup artist or a hairstylist, I still have to be well diverse in order to offer these to my clients or be able to educate other professionals and things of that nature. So I think that's really important.
Candace, do you believe that greater diversity among beauty pros can have an impact on the overall success and growth of the beauty industry?
Oh, absolutely. And it's kind of at a point where diversity should be the standard, right?
Yes.
It should be
Absolutely.
the standard now because, the beauty about diversity is that you can incorporate all perspectives, all needs. You can see the market from all angles. Diversity amongst genders as well. We actually have a lot of men that work for Myavana too. They're out here making sure that we provide the best hair care recommendations possible because they bought into the brand, they understand. And actually when you look at hair and look at beauty, right, it's expanding across the diverse population that is the United States of America, right? So if you're not, I think that it's an automatic that diversity just makes things better, period. And so I think that that's something that we should examine, and we should also start making a standard. And so that's, within our own businesses, but also challenging like our counterparts, right?
Absolutely.
So if you have a brand client or a brand partner and you're noticing a lack of diversity, that's actually something that you should bring up and actually, make a standard of engagement. And that will actually kind of push them to make sure that they're bringing the right voices to the table. Because one thing I found, especially in corporate settings, but really in a lot of settings, there are probably people who are not automatically brought to the table, right? But if someone is really pushing to think that, oh, who should contribute to this project, or who should contribute to this product development or this service, there's probably someone who maybe is not using their voice, going back to us being assertive, that maybe I should say, oh, hey, Monae, you know what? I've heard you talk about, extensions, your passion for extensions, right? I would like to invite you to this meeting. This meeting is about XYZ, right? And so I think that if we kind of push to make diversity the standard, then we'll create a ripple effect that really starts to change the industry and make it look like what we feel is like complete representation.
Absolutely,
Love
absolutely.
that.
And I love some hair extensions, so please invite me to that meeting. Okay, Oliver, what role do you think education and training play in promoting diversity? Are there changes or improvements you think should be made in the current educational system for cosmetology?
Absolutely. I think, I'm definitely seeing it go towards that, but there's always room for improvement. And like Candace said, I think you said it so eloquently that it's the standard. It shouldn't even be a discussion anymore. Like, should we be doing, like, of course we are, right? And so I look at it as like, it's going on whether you want to accept it or not. Same way social media came. You had old stylists, they said, oh, I'm not Instagram, you're just gonna get left behind, right? And so I think like it's gonna come to a point like you're gonna either be Blockbuster or you're gonna be Netflix, right? You're just gonna miss out, or you're gonna get it and you're gonna do your best to like continue to grow, right? And so I think it just comes down to that, because we're literally going into 2024. This is crazy that we're even having this conversation still, right? But since we are, right, it's like, I can't force you to want to be diverse. I can't force you to want to understand, if I learn this, I can expand my business. I become a better artist. I become an expert. I make more money. Like, if at this point in your career, if you don't understand that, it's kind of like, what could we do? Right? I mean, that's how I feel like.
Well, you know, I be doing stuff.
We're gonna get it. You guys are gonna get it because you're in the crowd, but like, we can't save everybody. So to me, it's just one of those things. It's like, we had to be that example, right? For many, many years, I did black hair shows, white hair shows, Hispanic hair shows, been in Puerto Rico, everywhere, Africa, Canada. So it's like, I'm gonna continue to talk about every texture of hair, right? And everybody that hears me is gonna understand that's my mission, and hopefully they'll get on it. But to me, it's like, it's the standard. We shouldn't even be talking about this still. Like, we're diverse people. It's where we're headed. We're headed to more texture and understanding. So, you know, if you want to be that best stylist, best business owner, you just have to accept diversity and like get on the train. Like, come with us, because we gone.
Thank you for bringing in technology. I was one of the first licensed hairstylists on YouTube, and the industry was not smiling upon me for that. Y'all fought it, but technology is going to move ahead. And what I always say is the enormous success of YouTube and YouTubers and beauty industry influencers came from the vast want of the public to learn more about beauty. So specifically in black hair salons, it was always, sit down, don't ask me any questions, I'm not telling you what I'm using, you're not gonna steal my job and not come back. You always want, as a beauty professional, an informed consumer. An informed consumer is going to be the one to come back to you. And it's really funny, now we have so many artists clamoring to increase their social media platforms, because this is the way that you make things happen for yourself. So I've got just 2 more questions that I'm going to try to quickly power through before they turn the lights off on us. Shout out to IBS for letting us close down the show. The first thing I would like for you guys to literally just list off any organizations, initiatives, or platforms that you know about that are actively working towards increasing diversity in the beauty industry.
So I would say there's an organization or a brand, Skin of Color, Nueki, Say Brazil, Candace Holyfield of the Six Figure Spa Boss Tribe. She also talks a lot about diversity and pushing, especially African American spas, to become more diverse, get more knowledgeable, and then of course myself as well, just putting information out there as I get it, spreading it as well, and Associated Skincare Professionals.
A couple of the organizations I want to point out are Glossier and New Voices Fund. So they have provided so much funding for Black women entrepreneurs, beauty entrepreneurs, and especially salon owners and stylists. And I know Glossier particularly funded a lot of grants during COVID. And I bring those up because to have more diversity in the industry, we need the funding that can fund the entrepreneurs that bring the diversity, right? And so closing those resource gaps, I know they've done a lot. Also, Myavana is increasing diversity in the beauty industry from a technology perspective. And also just through innovation, because we have to think about diversity comes from innovative ideas as well, and creating environments and work cultures that bring in everyone's ideas, being inclusive of everyone. And I think if we build stronger teams that way, that will continue to allow us to attract diverse talent as well.
Absolutely, and I'm happy that you mentioned Glossier and the awards that were sent out. And at the height of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter, a lot of companies pledged money, hundreds of millions of dollars were pledged towards diversity and inclusion. and only about 3% of that was ever actually awarded. 97% of that grant money sat unanswered. So to find a company that's doing something is great, and I'm going to go before Oliver because he's going to circle it back real quick so I can get my last question in. I do want to give a lot of love to Myavana, who is also one of the top sponsors for Texture Style Awards. They are putting their wallet where their mouth is, and that's what we need for diversity. Bring us on home on this question, Oliver.
Well, for me, I'm going to say two companies. One, Wella, which is the #1 color company in the world, and I think that we just launched a Pearl Craft curriculum that is amazing. It's going to go over how to color, how to care for, how to cut, how to style. So I think it's just a very organized, well-developed curriculum that is definitely teaching those that are not comfortable with texture how to deal with all aspects, from the product to assessing what you're dealing with, all of those things. So I had to throw them in there. And then my other company, Myavana, because literally it's so amazing, it's so revolutionary. What they're doing is just like has just blew my mind. That they're taking all the guesswork out of it. It's actually scientists, it's technology based, and it's giving you real results. So it doesn't matter if you're black, white, whatever. Like once you get under that scope, you're able to tell what's going on with this hair, the texture, the type, the condition it's in. So I think it's amazing. So those two will be my top two companies.
Hold on, wait a minute. Not both of them being Texture Style Awards sponsors.
I mean, you align yourself with the best. So
Yes, okay.
Shout out to you, Monae.
Thank you. The last thing I want to leave you guys with, and panelists, please, a quick thing that a beauty professional can do to change their trajectory. We all know it falls down on the individual to make some changes in their career. I'm going to give you each 30 seconds to give some quick advice. Who's up first?
I'll go first. I think the #1 thing to do, mentorship. I think in this day and age, we've kind of gone to YouTube and we think that has all the answers. It does not, right? So align yourself with people that are doing great things or are understanding what's going on and they're forward moving. Something I've learned this weekend, and this will be my other thing, is don't just think about now or the next year. Try to align yourself with a plan for the next 5 to 10 years. Listen to all these guys on these panels. It's just been mind-blowing to me that 10 years ago they were thinking about today, right? And a lot of times in my career, I was so like, what am I gonna do next year? Like, I didn't even think about 10 years later. So moving forward, like, get you a mentor and think further than like the next year. Because a lot of times we make decisions based off survival, and it's not for our long-term success.
That's
right?
so true.
So it's like, no matter what you're going through, even if you're in survival mode, try to train yourself to think, further than what you can see. And to me, if you can do those two things, I think you'll start to at least be on the right path.
Well said.
That was so good, Oliver. That was like the first top 2 things I thought about. Ask for help, write your vision out. And so the third thing I'll add is take care of yourself. That is really needs to become a priority again, because I know we all work really hard, right? We're all working so hard, but the balance in taking care of yourself, making sure you get ample rest, get your nutrients. If you're not eating lunch, at least make sure, have a smoothie in the morning, I have these liquid vitamins that I start to drink, but just keeping my health a priority makes my mental health so much better. And when your mental health is better, that connects to your emotional well-being. And that really affects how you perform, how you think, how you're able to get through the day. So take care of yourself.
Tasha, bring us home quickly, Mama.
It was amazing. I'm just going to close this out with being a lifelong learner, because if you're going to be a lifelong learner, then all of these things are going to run into place and pay into place, and you'll be able to move your success from here.
So my advice for everybody is going to be paid mentorship. When you get a regular mentor, maybe they'll show you some good stuff, maybe they'll cry with you. Get you a paid mentor who will have stepping stones for you to complete so that you know what you're going to get out of that situation. Also, push yourself to enter competitions such as Texture Style Awards. And since we're in the dark, I think that means we're done. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.